Hey, Amanda here. Today we're going to talk about what intuition actually is, why it goes quiet, and how you can start rebuilding that relationship with your inner voice, one small moment at a time. Go ahead and take a listen. Welcome to Oracle Mornings, your daily ritual for inner connection and soulful insight. Each morning, we draw a card together to inspire your day with intention, reflection, and a touch of magic. Whether you're just beginning your spiritual journey or simply seeking a moment of peace, you're in the right place. So take a breath, open your heart, and let's begin. Good morning, good morning. I'm your host, Amanda Johnson, host of the Oracle Mornings podcast. And today we are jumping into our longer form episode. And the topic we're discussing today is why can't you hear your intuition and how to start trusting it again. I know that I am deep in this journey, and that is why I want to share it with you. Some days I can definitely hear it louder than others. Some days I don't hear it at all. But it's all in practice. So sometimes when you hear the word intuition at all, you might think, oh, I don't have that. Maybe you've heard someone say, I just knew it about a decision they've made and thought, I just never know anything. I second guess everything. You're not broken. You're just disconnected from your intuition. And the fact that you're here listening to this means something in you is already searching. And that searching and that curiousness, that is intuition. And today we're going to talk about what it actually is, why it goes quiet, and how you can start rebuilding that relationship with your inner voice. And it's in one small moment at a time. We'll also be pulling from the Oracle card deck called Medicine Heart Oracle by Alana Fairchild. And I can't wait to share what comes up for us in that. But first, let's dig into it, what intuition actually is. So intuition is not some kind of superpower or something only spiritual people have. And we've been sold this idea that intuition belongs to psychics or highly spiritual people who meditate for hours and hours a day. And that's just not true. It really belongs to all of us. It's something we are all born with. It's like an inner knowing, but it's very quiet. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's not like some booming voice from the sky. It's more like a whisper or even a subtle sense of yes or no that shows up before your brain has had a chance to overthink it. And you might feel this once in a while where someone asks you if you can do something for them and you can feel yourself saying no, but out of your mouth comes that yes because you think you should. So again, if you sometimes feel it in the body, what people refer to as a gut feeling or that subtle pull of a sense of yes or no, and you can't always explain why, that's most likely your intuition. Let's say you meet someone and something just feels off, even though they haven't necessarily done anything wrong. And you're offered this opportunity and your stomach drops, even though it looks perfect. That's it. That's intuition. And most of us have felt it at some point. We just didn't know that we could call it that. So an example might be, if you think about a time you just knew something before it happened, or you had that feeling about a situation and you turned out to be right, you probably said, I had a feeling. And that's simply your intuition talking. And the problem isn't that we don't have it. It's that we've learned to override it over time. We talk ourselves out of it constantly. We say things like, I'm probably just being paranoid, or I am overlooking this. And we override that quiet signal every single time. And that leads us into, why does our intuition go quiet in the first place? See, we've been conditioned to trust logic and reason over feeling, at least most of us. From a young age, we're taught to think things through. Make pros and cons lists, and look at the facts. And feelings are often seen as unreliable. So we learn to lead with our heads and ignore everything else because we're searching for that evidence. It's what we've been taught. Another reason it goes quiet is because of chronic busyness. That really keeps us in our heads and takes us out of our body. So if you're running from task to task, answering emails, managing everyone else's needs, you never drop out of your head long enough to feel anything. But intuition lives in the body. And if we're almost never in our bodies, then we won't hear it or feel it. Another reason is that we've overridden it so many times that it stopped being as loud. So think of a friend who keeps calling and you keep sending them right to voicemail. Have you ever noticed how eventually they stop calling as often? Your intuition does something very similar. It knows that you're not in a place where you can listen, where you can hear it, so it goes quiet. Another reason is that outside influences are very strong. So other people's voices and opinions and their expectations have gotten louder than your own. Maybe you've made decisions based on what your family expected, or what even made sense to the people around you, or what looked right on the outside. And over time, those outside voices become louder than your own. And we're sometimes afraid, too, of what our intuition might tell us, because deep down, we already know. Sometimes we go quiet on purpose, because if we actually stop and listen, we might have to admit that that relationship isn't right, or the job isn't working, or the life we've built isn't the one we actually want. That's terrifying. So we stay busy instead. And one of the final reasons it might go quiet is because of things like social media, noise, constant distraction. Those things keep us from ever getting quiet enough to hear it. We're so overstimulated, and our dopamine levels are just searching for more and more and more. We reach for our phones the second we have a spare moment, or if we're in a line or sitting in a waiting room. It's so natural for us to reach for that phone now, but what if you were just to sit quietly? Feels kind of weird, right? We fill every quiet space with noise, and intuition needs some quiet. It cannot compete with that TikTok scroll. And I also want to throw in there that going quiet for some people really isn't the best way to hear their intuition. Some people do need to be in movement or in things that help their nervous system feel safe. So you might hear someone say, oh, the best idea came to me when I was in the shower, or I went out for a run and this idea finally became clear to me, or this answer finally became clear to me, or I was dancing in my kitchen when this opportunity just struck. So sometimes people do need to be in a little bit more motion. I know when I used to go for long walks or long runs, I felt that was my form of meditation because I could get lost in just being in the moment. And there was nothing else to really distract me but just walking in a straight line. So it was a really nice time to go inward. So if we wanted to take a moment and reframe all of these reasons why our intuition's going quiet, one of the important things to remember is that the intuition itself has not left you. It's just been drowned out. So it's not gone. It's more like a radio signal that's always broadcasting, and maybe you have static in the way. Or you just have to turn the radio on because the music's always there. The signal is always there, but you have to be on the right frequency to hear it. And the work isn't that it's in finding it again, it's clearing enough space to hear it again. Also, the relationship with your inner voice isn't broken. It's just gone quiet. So you haven't lost the ability to trust yourself. You've just been practicing not trusting yourself for a really long time. And anything you've practiced, you can unpractice or practice a new way with these reframes. And intuition does not necessarily come back all at once. it will come back in small moments of noticing. And that's why the practice is so important. It might start with something really, really small. Like maybe you pause before you say yes to something and then immediately notice a tiny feeling of dread. You don't override it this time. And that's just the beginning. So you've been invited to that party that you really don't want to go to and you said yes, but you're like, ugh, I didn't really want to say yes to that. Don't write that off. Even if you end up going to the party, be aware of that tiny feeling of dread that you noticed. Because again, that's the beginning of re-practicing being in a relationship with your intuition. So one of the things I was drawn to do when I started Oracle Mornings, and this is just a quick personal example, to me it didn't make any logical sense at the time. There was no roadmap or guarantee, but something within me kept saying, you need to do this podcast, and I was pulled toward it anyway. And that pull was intuition. And it was saying, use this to show her what following a quiet inner knowing actually looks like in real life. And that's why at the beginning of the episode, I said mine doesn't always come in strong. Some days it's really quiet. Some days it says nothing at all. But when I'm consistent with my practices, I definitely hear it more often. And the synchronicities definitely pop up more. So every time you pause and check in with yourself, you are rebuilding that relationship too. Even if you ask yourself, how do I actually feel about this? Before making a decision is an act of rebuilding trust with your own inner voice. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Keep it real, keep it simple. Because if it's too hard, you just won't do it. So get it down to the simple as it can be. And it is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So the more you're practicing pausing and checking in, the faster and clearer that inner signal becomes. It starts as a whisper, and over time it becomes something you can't necessarily ignore. So check in with yourself throughout your day. You know, if you're making a phone call to a friend, how do you feel when you left that phone call? How did you feel before you made the phone call? Were you dreading it or were you excited? And start using this around food. If lunchtime's coming up or breakfast, take 30 seconds. Maybe close your eyes and say, what does my body want to eat today? And intuitive eating is a whole nother thing that I don't necessarily have a ton of experience with, but it's a really good place to practice. So when you're adding this spiritual layer to intuition, I believe that intuition is how the universe communicates with us personally and individually. So it's not through grand gestures necessarily, but again, that quiet inner nudge, the thought that pops in out of nowhere, or the pull towards something that you can't quite explain. It's not random. It's guidance, or as I like to call it, breadcrumbs. Follow the breadcrumbs, because that helps me visualize taking tiny steps by tiny steps, knowing that I just have to get to the first one before the next one appears. And it's also the inner counterpart to synchronicities. So synchronicities are that outer sign where intuition is the inner signal. So you might see a sign on the outside or a song that comes on at exactly the right moment, a word that keeps showing up. And at the same time, you feel something stir on the inside. Those two things are working together, your intuition and the synchronicities. One is the universe speaking outward, and the other is you receiving inward. Another way that people really see these synchronicities is usually with repeating numbers. Sometimes that you hear them referred to as angel numbers. My personal favorite is 444, which I will speak to in a minute. So again, synchronicities, intuition work together. When you start listening to one, you start noticing the other. And as you practice turning and tuning into your intuition, you'll find that the synchronicities seem to increase as well. And it's not that they weren't there before, but you are finally paying attention and being open to seeing them. So to the 444 example I just mentioned, when my dad passed away in 2020, I wasn't quite at the beginning of my spiritual journey yet, where it was super new to me. And when he passed, there's grief that you're dealing with, and it's also a question of how am I ever going to feel connected to my dad again? And I just kind of asked that outward. Like, I don't want to lose the connection. I want to remember that he's still part of who I am and that he's got me. He's on the other side, but he's got my back. And I could not believe the amount of synchronicities that started pouring in. 444 was like the number that started right away, and some personal numbers with birthdays and dates and the day he passed. It all just started lighting up. I remember taking a measurement at his house to help my stepmom with something, and it was like 4 by 4 by 4 was the measurement. And so ever since then, if I see those numbers, it kind of gives me an opportunity to say, hey, I'm on the right track, or hi, Dad, thanks for checking in. I really appreciate you showing me that you're still here and supporting me. And I remember also we had a playlist playing. I think I was working on his obituary or something of that nature. Kind of hard to remember all the details at this point. And we had maybe like a Pandora station in the background. It's like Jack Johnson music, low key, surfer music, just really laid back vibes. And all of a sudden, a song came on by Louis Armstrong, the What a Wonderful World song. And it did not match the playlist at all, but it is the song that my dad and I danced to at my wedding. So those are just some examples of one thing in my life that those synchronicities really started pouring in. And I'm hoping it gives you the opportunity to maybe recognize times in your life where that's happened as well. And then spiritual practice isn't just about rituals and routines. Moving on. Learning to listen to yourself is actually a spiritual practice, because you don't need a formal meditation practice or an altar to begin. Even if you're sitting quietly for 5 minutes and asking yourself how you're really doing, that is a spiritual practice, and it absolutely counts. Or going back to what I mentioned earlier, if it means going out for that run or having your own little dance party, or letting the warm water in the shower just pour over you, it all is part of the practice. The goal is to just take the time for yourself and to see if you can connect with that inner intuition. And I thoroughly believe oracle cards can be a beautiful tool for this. That's why I started the podcast, because they give your intuition something to respond to. They're a really great reflection tool. So when you pull a card and something in you lights up or tightens or feels seen, that response is your intuition reflecting back. And the cards don't usually tell you what to think. I don't think I've ever seen a time where a card tells you what to think. It just gives your inner knowing a mirror to look into, and then you notice your reactions to it. And that is a beautiful segue into our reading. Again, I'm pulling from the Medicine Heart Oracle by Alana Fairchild. And the card I pulled today is called Hayagriva. And I believe it is Sanskrit. So if I mispronounce the Sanskrit words in this one, I do apologize. I've also put this into a paraphrased card message because it's an extremely long one. So go ahead. Take a deep breath in. I know I just threw a lot of information at you. Go ahead and put your hand on your heart and close your eyes if you can. Hayagriva carries the energy of the divine hero, fierce, compassionate, and deeply wise. This card arrives to remind you that you have everything you need to rise above whatever challenge you are currently facing. You have the capacity to attract the support you need, to approach your situation from a completely new perspective, and to use your experiences as fuel for growth rather than proof of your limitations. Spiritual progress is happening, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. Even if things feel off track or further from where you want them to be than ever, take heart. This is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that your soul is learning. Now is the time to return to your spiritual practice, to reconnect with yourself, and to trust that you will succeed. It is only a matter of time. Hayagriva also speaks to the power of your voice and your inner knowing. Start from the heart. Let your heart lead, let your mind follow, and then let your actions flow from that place of alignment. When you feel confused or scattered, come back to the heart. That is where your truth lives. You have covered more spiritual ground than you realize. Be patient with yourself. Hold yourself accountable, but also treat yourself with kindness. Things may be tough for a time, but you will benefit so much from what is unfolding. You are making progress, and you will go far on your spiritual path. Go ahead and take a moment to reflect. This card is essentially a confirmation that your intuition is not gone and your spiritual progress is absolutely real, even when you can't see it. Everything we've been talking about today, the disconnection, the static, the overriding, this card sees all of it and says, you are still making progress and it has not been wasted. This card speaks directly to the women who feel like they're getting it wrong, who has been so far in her head that she's lost touch with her heart. And if you've been feeling like everyone else has this figured out except you, this card is certainly speaking to you. You are not behind. You are exactly where your soul needs to be. The card's guidance of start from the heart is the simplest, most grounded description of intuition there is. It lives in the heart and not in the head. There's no reason to figure it out or make a pros and cons list. Just start from the heart and ask yourself what your heart says before your head gets involved. That is the whole practice in 4 words. And sometimes when you are sitting quietly and listening to your intuition and you say, did my head just say that, or was that actually my heart? I think you might even notice a different cadence. Sometimes mine even gets a little rhymey, so I find myself writing it out and it almost looks like a poem. And I do not speak that way. And that's sometimes clarification for me that, yep, that was my intuition and not my head. And going back to the card, the line about the voice is powerful here because your intuition speaks through your inner voice. And every time you quiet the noise and listen, you're strengthening that connection. And Hayagriva on the card is associated with the power of voice and sound. And your intuition has a voice too, but it speaks quietly. But it does speak. And the more you listen, the more clearly you'll hear it and the more often. So this card also gently calls out the pattern of overriding your inner knowing in favor of what looks right on the outside. So again, how many times have you made the decision based on how it looked to other people or what made the most logical sense, but then ignored that quiet feeling inside that was saying something different? And this card is an invitation to start shifting that. So, your recognition that you feel when you notice whether you're excited, disappointed, or grumpy, it's you, it's your intuition, it's already awake and it's already responding. And if something within you stirred when I read that card, even just a little flutter, a quiet yes, or that sense of being seen finally, pay attention to that. It's not a coincidence, it is you waking up. Let's move on to our reflection questions. And again, I always recommend that you journal on these if you can, or write them down and go on that walk if you need to. Number 1, think of a time you ignored your intuition. What did that feel like in your body afterward? Maybe it was a relationship you stayed in too long, or a job you knew that wasn't right, but you took it anyway. What did your body feel like when you made that choice? Was it tight, heavy, It's very worth exploring. Number 2, where in your life right now is there a quiet knowing that you've been talking yourself out of? Is there something you already know deep down that you've been avoiding looking at? Just sit with that question. You don't have to act on it today. Just let yourself acknowledge it. Number 3, what would it look like to start from the heart this week, even in one small decision? It doesn't have to be a big life decision. It could be as simple as, before you say yes to something this week, pause for just a moment and ask your heart first and notice what it says. Thank you so much for joining me today. And just being here, being curious is already the practice of reconnecting with your inner voice. And if you're sitting with today's episode and thinking, okay, something is definitely stirring in me, but I don't fully know what to call it yet, I made something for you. It's a free guide called 5 Signs You're Beginning a Spiritual Awakening. And it's a beautiful little companion to everything we explored today. You can grab it at the link in the show notes or just head on over to oraclemornings.com/awakening and you can download it there. I hope you have a beautiful week ahead and weekend, and we will talk again soon. Take care. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Oracle Mornings. Please take a moment and follow the show so you never miss an episode. Simply open the app you listen to podcasts on, such as Apple Podcasts, and hit the follow button. Your support means the world, and I'm so grateful that you choose to spend part of your day with me. And remember, you are a miracle.